Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Demopoulos. I'm a program manager that works on the Universal Windows platform. I work on the XAML UI framework for UWP. I'm a program manager lead there. And over the last, give or take, maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit less, a lot of my attention on the team has been around trying to improve XAML for line of business and productivity and enterprise applications. I was asked to go and focus in that area, and so it's been a lot of fun sort of ramping up in that space and trying to get to understand it. I'm super excited to be here to show you some of the stuff that's coming up. And with me is Daniel. Daniel's co-presenting. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks a lot, Ryan. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Jacobson, and I'm a program manager on Visual Studio. And for the last almost 4 years or so, I've been exclusively working on tools for Windows developers, from UWP developers to the XAML design surface, everything from project creation to creating application packages to distribute in the store or otherwise. And I've really been focused on making Windows developers the most productive client developers. And I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that are coming soon. I'll pass it back to Ryan to get us started.
Awesome. So yeah, we've got a lot of things to talk about today. We're going to be showing you a lot of cool features, both in tooling and then also in the platform that are coming. Most of this stuff will be arriving later this year. Some of it's available today. I will say a few things sort of up front in the talk, just so that you're like in the right spot and you know what to expect. The first thing is that everything we're going to cover is going to be UWP specific. Now, because it's UWP, you can go and use this stuff through UWP's XAML islands in like a Win32 application, but we're not going to be covering Win32 specifically. These are UWP capabilities, and this talk is about building line of business applications in UWP. So there's lots of cool stuff that we've done, and we're going to spend our time there. This is also going to be a fairly tool and coding heavy talk. I think I have like 2 slides, like actual content slides, and I think Daniel, I don't know how many you have, maybe
4 or 5 or
maybe
so.
4 or 5. So we're going to be spending our time outside of PowerPoint. We're going to be in Visual Studio, and we'll be playing around with tools and stuff. So, and I mean, it's like almost the end of the conference, so I'm assuming you guys like really want to go and see code and see features, so we're happy to show them to you. And the last thing I'll mention is all of this, yeah, I got some thumbs up. The last thing is this is some serious pre-release software. Like the build of Windows is from Thursday. A lot of the APIs came in on Friday. I was literally debugging some of this stuff like over the weekend at like 11 o'clock at night with a developer who was on a plane to his vacation. So we have cobbled something together here. It's very, very fresh, and it will be an absolute miracle if we make it through without having to go and restart something. So, but it's awesome. You guys get to be the first people to go and see some of this stuff. And even some members of our team haven't seen some of these features actually live in action. So it'll be really cool stuff. So just before we get into the code, there is an application that I want to go and show you to start things off. The application is called the Inventory application. It is by a fictional company called Van Arsdale, and Van Arsdale is kind of like Northwind or Contoso. It's a company that we have sort of invented to just kind of like put ourselves in the mindset of like, what would this company need to go and create? What kind of line of business software might they need to go and make? And Van Arsdale's sort of premise is they make sort of like nicely designed sort of high-end furnishings for home and for the office. And the Inventory application is for product managers that can go and look at customers and orders and different products that Van Arsdale sells, and they can go and manage those different things. So let's switch over. Yeah, Daniel, you got the KVM, perfect. So this is Van Arsdale Inventory, and this is a UWP application. It's completely written in UWP. There's a few different screens in here. A few of the people in this room actually were involved in writing this, yep. So thanks very much to the folks that I see in the audience that put this together. But Van Arsdale Inventory has like a customers sort of page where you see a bunch of customers. It's got an order page where you can see recent orders that have been placed to the company. It also has a products page that has like a grid view, and it shows all the various sort of like products that Van Arsdale sells. And the reason I'm showing you this is really kind of to basically make 2 points. The first one is that this application here is written entirely in UWP, and it's not written on any of the stuff that Daniel and I are going to spend the next 65 minutes showing you. This is written on APIs that exist today. So you can go and run this on the April 2018 update. Everything that you see here will work just fine. And it is, it's fairly data dense. It has a table full of customers with lots of information that's coming in. It has fields that you can go and edit this customer and go and change things. It's got like an orders tab that goes and shows yet another table of more information in here. If I click the new customer button, because we have sets enabled on here, it will actually go and pop up basically the equivalent of a new window. It'll go put a new tab in the sets area, and which has got an even richer form that you can go and fill out customer stuff. And I can go and break this out. If I had like a multi-mon setup, I could go and move that tab around and go and put it on other monitors. You can even this wasn't working earlier this morning, but hey, it did work that time. You can go and put it back in the sets too. So, there's lots of rich functionality in this application, and we wanted to just kind of show, like, yeah, you can go and build line of business applications even today. There are definitely some rough edges in some different difficult areas, but this can be built. The other reason I wanted to show you this was this application was released this past weekend, and you can go and get it. So if you go over to the .NET application architecture page off of Microsoft.com, I'm going to go and zoom in here. In the lower right corner, down here, there's a UWP desktop apps section. And there's a few links here that will be helpful to you if you want to go and do the line of business development in UWP. But the first link is the one where you can go and get the app. So this is going to take you to the GitHub page where you can go and clone the repo. You can go and take a look at this code. The inventory application was written for this purpose. It was to show you guys how you could go and pattern your own line of business applications in UWP off of this app. So it uses MVVM, a good, robust MVVM architecture. It uses a SQL database, but you can hook it up to, kind of whatever kind of database that you would want to hook up if you want to do some cloud stuff. It uses Entity Framework. And it's just meant to be written in a way that you can go and use it sort of as like an architectural reference. So go check it out, and you can start building line of business applications even today. So with that, we've got a pretty packed agenda. We are going to be, as I said, we're going to be coding. We're going to be creating another Van Arsdale application called Sales. It's one that we just sort of made up and invented. It's not going to be as pretty or as polished as inventory, and if we have 5 and it works, that'll be great. But we are going to be building the sales application. We're going to show you a bunch of new features, and Daniel's going to get us started with, oh, I didn't click forward here.
That's with,
right. These features, guys, these are the ones we're going to cover today. We're going to actually just step through them one by one. So that you can kind of know where we are. This is all the stuff we're going to be showing you. And Daniel will start with Windows Template Studio. So
thanks a lot. Can you press 7?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you. So as Ryan mentioned, we're working with this fictional organization, Van Arsdale, that sells lamps mostly to offices, homes, and more. And so before we get into building this application, let's just take a look at the end product so we know exactly where we're going to be going throughout. That way you can understand the scenario that we're building up to, so hopefully it all makes sense as we build it. So we're going to be building a menu bar driven application. As you can see, I have a menu bar. And the primary customer of this type of application is more of a traveling sales representative from Van Arsdale. They're going to visit the clients. They're going to actually create orders in person with their customers. And so the primary function of this app is an order form. And it ties into the same database, so the same set of customers, if I want to see those customers. I can add in order items, and this flyout menu pops up. And I've got a tree view with a list of all the products. I can go in, add some products, and submit orders. And so when this traveling salesperson uses this application and they submit an order, that gets logged in the Van Arsdale inventory application for fulfillment and for the product managers to review the number of orders coming in based off of which customer and more. So that's the scenario that we're building up to. And I'm really excited to start. I think Explorer's going to crash in just a second. Like I said, everything is super, super early.
Explorer crashes like every 3 minutes on this machine.
Yes.
So get used to it.
So we've seen the app that we're going to build up to, and I'm going to close this so the next time I F5 it'll work. And I'm really excited to get started with Windows Template Studio. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into File, New, if I can do it with this mouse, I'm not used to the mouse. File, New Project, and Windows Template Studio is what I'm going to select. And so I'll do Van Arsdale Sales, and I'll call this live because we're doing it live. And what will come up is the Windows Template Studio dialog which is essentially a template generator wizard that allows me to create a ton of the boilerplate code that I would normally need to create when starting a more complex, advanced .NET desktop application. And I'm really excited to do this demo because I actually was with Clint in the back, who is one of the founders of Windows Template Studio, when we announced it last year at Build. So it's really fun to come back here and talk about some improvements that are coming. So the first thing that I want to point out is that menu bar is a brand new project type and not released yet. This is super early preview that we're going to be able to bring to you later this year in the fall because of a technology called WinUI. So can we go back to the slides just for a second?
Yep.
This first demo is kind of 2 demos in one because there's a really cool talking point. So we'll skip forward to the Windows UI library. You may have seen this at the keynote, but this is essentially the future of how we're going to start shipping platform controls for universal Windows platform developers. And the biggest takeaway and the biggest point here is that we're shipping the controls available down level to the anniversary update of Windows 10. We recognize many of our customers, especially working in large enterprises, cannot update to the latest version of Windows 10 immediately. A lot of times you're 3 months delayed, 6 months delayed, a year delayed from being able to take advantage of those latest updates. But if you want to take advantage of the latest and greatest controls and XAML features, we want you to be able to do that right away. And that's where WinUI came from. And so some of the things that will be coming in Windows UI later this year is UI density resources, fluent materials and animations, and a whole bunch of controls that have been released in the platform already, some of them, and some of them are new. But not all of them go back to the anniversary update of Windows 10. For example, the tree view control just came out recently, and we're actually adding more features to it in Windows UI library and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if we go back into Visual Studio, we'll continue building this application. And one thing that's really, really nice about Windows Template Studio is it pulls in all of the resources and references you need automatically, and also will notify you of any licenses. So I'm pulling in WinUI library, which is a NuGet package. It's notifying me of that license, and I can go ahead and select next. Now, since this is really early, we only have one design pattern implemented for the menu bar project type. But when we ship this in the fall, we'll have MVVM Lite, basic MVVM, Calibre Micro, Prism, and all these other design patterns, which will essentially scaffold your solution to include your view models, your views, everything you need, as well as best coding practices, and a bunch of helper classes and services, such as like an iNotify property change interface implemented for you, so you don't have to go ahead and do that over and over and over again for all of your client apps. You can go ahead and add as many pages as you'd like. We're keeping our application simple. We really have a settings page and a create new order page. You can rename the pages on the fly. And then you can go add features. So one of the demos we'll do at the end is with the Visual Studio App Center. And so to save me some time for that demo, I'm going to select that feature. Now, just to save time, because we have so much we want to show you, I'm not actually going to create the project because I already have it created. And I will skip ahead to that exact same project that we've already made. So here I have the solution that's generated by Windows Template Studio. Nothing has really changed here. This is just the menu bar project type that it would build. It gives you the 3 views. The menu page is essentially the shell that hosts the content when you navigate through the menu bar. The order page is the one that we're going to create that customer-driven order form, and then the settings page where they put in some generic settings. And so let's take a look at the menu page and F5 this application just so we can start looking at the XAML. So here you can see the menu bar control is defined from the Windows UI library with the appropriate namespace prefix already defined for you, with a couple of different menu flyout items in the File menu and the Views menu. And so we have File Settings, File Exit, and then View Order Page. And we're going to change this slightly in just a moment to add a few new features that are really valuable, especially in a productive enterprise-grade application. The one thing that I almost always use is keyboard shortcuts. So if you just think about Visual Studio is a great canonical example of a menu bar-driven application where I'm sure many of you use keyboard shortcuts to do most of the things that you're comfortable with in Visual Studio. This isn't yet hooked up for that, so here I can see it's a fairly basic application that it gets me started with, but it does a lot of the work behind the scenes to get all of the services running. So I've got theme resourcing by default. I can go ahead back to default. I can navigate to an order page. It gets all of that navigation boilerplate code ready to go so that when I replace the content of my menu page, it just works. And it really saves me hours and hours of code just to get started. So let's go in and update my menu bar control just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and paste a snippet just to change things up. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm actually moving the Create New Order menu bar item into the File menu because that's the primary purpose of this application. Think about Visual Studio. You go to File, New Project. It's not in Views, New Project, right? And you can customize that however you want after you get your application started. In addition, I added the file access keys as well as keyboard accelerators so that I can do all of my keyboard shortcuts. And so the control by default, if I press Alt, I can see the file access key. And this is all default in UWP. I can see my keyboard shortcuts. I can do everything from the keyboard really, really fast. And not only that, so I do this centered around productivity because that's what I value, but this is also really important for accessibility. So not only is my app more productive for the power users of my organization, now I've also solved accessibility problems because everything can be done directly through the keyboard. So now we're going to head back to the slides for just a second and move on to the next demo, which is .NET Standard. So a lot of this isn't brand new stuff, but it's becoming increasingly valuable as Windows evolves. With the Windows 10 Fall Creators Update, we implemented .NET Standard 2.0 for Universal Windows Platform. And that allows much more easily reusable .NET Framework libraries. So can we go back to Visual Studio? And so what that means for this application is we're working in an enterprise that already has a history of .NET assets that I don't want to recreate. We've already got this database. We've already got this data model that we're using in the Van Arsdale inventory application, much like I'm sure many of you already have years and years of .NET history in your organizations. So what I want to do is I just want to add in my existing data project. I don't want to have to rebuild that. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to add an existing project to the solution. I'm going to add a reference from the UWP project. And if you went ahead and looked at the Van Arsdale inventory solution on GitHub, you would see that this is pretty much the exact same model class or model project as there, except simplified a little bit just for this demo. And what you have here is you have your two models. We're only dealing with customers and products in this application, really simple. And you have your database context and your database service, which allows you to perform the connection to the database, as well as all of your CRUD operations, so create, read, update, and deleting entries in the database. And so what I'll do is I'll add a reference to that library, and everything will work as expected. And let me show you that this is indeed a .NET Standard 2.0 class library. I'll build it, and everything will work. And we'll go back to the slides just a moment to talk about the value of .NET Standard. So with .NET Standard 2.0 in the Windows 10 Fall Creators Update, we implemented an additional about 20,000 APIs that can be shared across any .NET platform that implements that version of .NET Standard, including Windows 10 on the Fall Creators Update. The other thing that's really beneficial about this huge API increase is it makes it so much easier to migrate your existing .NET Framework libraries, portable class libraries, whatever you may have, to .NET Standard to be more easily consumed across all of your different .NET applications. One of the things that we also added was a compatibility shim layer for existing .NET Framework libraries. So say you reference a NuGet package that doesn't actually do anything that isn't outside of .NET Standard and you want to consume it, you can do that in a UWP project at your own risk. Things may break a little bit, but so long as you test it, it should work. So some examples of the top-level namespaces available in .NET Standard 2.0 that actually greatly expanded with .NET Standard 2 are listed here, but you can get a lot more information at aka.ms/netstandard. We've also been investing in some tooling to help you migrate existing .NET assets forward. So pretty much take your existing data model classes, whatever you have, move to .NET Standard. When you build UWP apps or any .NET application, it could be ASP.NET Core, you name it, it's really easy to reuse that code, which is really valuable. It essentially doubles the value of your investments in .NET in your organization, which is really important. So I'm going to pass it back to Ryan as he starts talking about UI density, and I'm going to get the app ready behind the scenes for the next demo.
Awesome. So you guys may have seen some of this. It was mentioned in Kevin Gallo's keynote, but when we're talking about UI density, we're talking about how much stuff can fit on the screen, is exactly what it sounds like. How much stuff can fit on the screen. And this can be especially important for line of business and enterprise applications because you guys deal with a lot of information and data. Even in the Van Arsdale inventory application that we saw, there were tables of stuff, tables of customers that we were trying to show a lot of information. There was a big customer form. And getting the right level of density in your user interface can mean the difference between your users only seeing, say, 5 or 6 or 7 rows and being able to see more rows on the table, or having to scroll in order to do basic things like entering new customers. And so we know, and we've gotten lots of feedback, and have even felt this feedback ourselves in building our own UWP applications at the company, our first-party ones, that the default sizing and spacing of UWP UI is generous. It's pretty generous. There's a lot of white space between the controls. The controls themselves are a little bit big. The text point size that's used is a little bit on the big side. We've heard that feedback, and we've got a couple things coming later on this year that are going to go and help out with this. The first thing is that if you're running an application, a UWP application, on the release of Windows that's coming later on this year, by default, when you're running on that version, you will get the new Microsoft standard size. So we're just going to go and shrink things down a little bit. We're going to go and make less space between the controls, make the controls a little bit smaller, decrease the point size a little bit. We've done a lot of testing to try and get the sizing right on this, but it's going to allow for a little bit more space to be shown, and you're going to get, you know, roughly a third extra UI for the same amount of given space in your application. However, even this level of spacing might not be enough for some line of business and enterprise applications, and we recognize that. And so for those of you that need even more density or even more density hungry, we're going to have an opt-in size called compact size. And compact size, you'll be able to opt in with a single line of markup. And you'll be able to go and scrunch things down even further so that you can get 50% or more UI on the screen. And this compact size begins to approach the kind of sizing that you might see in a traditional Windows 32 application. It's pretty dense. You can fit a lot of information in there. The good news is it also still works well for touch, for mouse, for keyboard, and for ink. And part of the reason that we can do this in a way that maybe we couldn't have done in Win32 in the past is we've got good touch targeting in UWP. So we can, you can touch this stuff pretty well and go and use it if that's part of your scenario, if you've got like mobility scenarios and you want to go and infuse that into your line of business application. So I'm going to do a demo now to show you that single line of markup to go and opt into compact sizing and to show you how easy it'll be. This will just be super quick. While I was talking here, Daniel was furiously coding away, and he created an entire new page with a customer form in this application. Let's give Daniel a round of applause. If I go into create new order, there's now a form in here. And the form is actually functional. He's really good. And if I go and like type this, I know it's a little slow. I've got like all these customers, all the data bindings hooked up, so I can go and like click a customer and hook it in. And Abigail's information shows up up here in the corner. So we've got this form, but you can see that it takes up a fair bit of room. So let's go and opt into compact sizing. We know that we want to go and add more UI to this application throughout the session. Let's get this, this form scrunched down. So I'm going to stop the running of this here. I'm going to do this at the app.xaml level. So I'm basically going to opt in compact sizing all throughout the XAML tree, all throughout the application. You can go and do this on specific pages if you want to, but I'm just going to do the whole thing. And this is it. This is the magic. Now, this isn't the actual final line of code that you will eventually write because compact sizing is going to ship in the Windows UI library, but we haven't integrated it yet because it's just too early. And so right now, compact sizing literally just exists as like a resource dictionary in this application. It will still ship as a resource dictionary, but it's going to be part of the WinUI library. So you'll just reference the Windows UI library when you're going to go and use this. And just with that, I can compile and run this application. You're going to see everything in the application shrink down. So you can see the menu bar gets smaller, the menu bar items get smaller. I'll go and show you the drop-down in the auto-suggest box for searching for customers. You can see it all here. There it is. So you can see that the menu bar now is substantially smaller to the point where I probably could zoom in. If I drop down the menu bar items here, you can also see that all the items are scrunched down. That just allows me to fit more things in this menu bar. And actually, we've bumped up the fonts even a little bit in Visual Studio. But this is actually, if we had like the default font size in Visual Studio, it's actually identical. The menu bar is exactly as tall as it is in Visual Studio. And if I go into this new order page here, you can see that the text boxes have gotten smaller. They've scrunched up a little bit. If I go and search for Abigail again, it will bring up a smaller set of rows in the auto-suggest box. So everything's just a little bit scrunched in. Still works fine. Really good for data-dense requirements. One other thing I'll show you, just to sort of accentuate the point, is this is a screenshot of the application before we applied compact sizing. So this is the kind of savings you can expect to get. And you can get even more if you need to. Because it's a resource dictionary, you can either start from standard sizing or from compact sizing, and you can override even more values. And we'll have documentation and a sample in the XAML controls gallery sample that'll show you how to go and do that. So we really are trying to make sure that if you're going to go and build these line of business applications in UWP, you get the sizing you want. We don't want the spacing issue to be an issue for you anymore. So we're taking care of that. So the next topic that we'll cover is color theming. Color theming is about getting the colors of your brand or your organization put into your application so that it sort of takes on the look and feel of your brand. And this is an interesting topic because, well, first of all, if you've ever tried to go and change the colors in a UWP XAML application, you know that it can be a time-consuming task. And it can be time-consuming for a few reasons. There's just a lot of resources that you need to go and override. The keys have got like really long names, and so it can be tricky to even know sort of like if I go and override this one color, which one do I need to override? Sometimes you'll override it and you'll like change the button face color, but then it might have some other unintended effect somewhere else in the UI because the two pieces of UI are using the same resource key. And so it can be time consuming. You can blow like literally hours on MSDN and Stack Overflow trying to figure out how do I go and put these colors in. And what ends up happening in a line of business and enterprise context is you just don't do it. Because you're busy people, you have a limited amount of time to go and write your applications, you got something else that you got to go and get to, you're juggling a lot of things. And so we want to lower that barrier substantially so that you can do that extra little bit of detail and go and get your organization's colors in your application. I'm going to go and show you a tool that's coming out later this year. It's been shown in some of the other talks, but we're actually going to go and use the tool in actually F5. And I'm going to show you how probably in 60 seconds, you can go and put all the colors that you want into your application. So this is pre-release tool. You can tell it's pre-release because its title is... Oh, that's not the right one. Thank you. That's Van Arsdale. That's not pre-release. That's been released. This is the pre-release tool. It's called Color Demo. So we will pick another title. I'm open to suggestions at the end of this. And Color Demo is a tool that basically allows you to pick different colors and see how they're going to affect the UI in your application. So just to pick a single one here, I'm going to change the primary dark theme color to something really light. Like I'm going to go maybe like a light pink or something like that. And I can see what that affects. I can see how it's changing buttons and checkboxes and radio buttons and things like that. And there's a whole interface in this that I won't go through right now, but you guys will be able to play with it when it comes out, where you can go and try and get the colors of your organization to exactly what you want. I'll show you one other thing too. Another aspect of this tool is that it will also warn you if you pick colors that aren't a good fit. So I picked a terrible color here, and I did that on purpose because the tool is telling me, hey, there's a contrast ratio problem here, and low vision accessibility users might not do well with the colors that you picked. So you might want to go and rethink that. So I'm going to sort of skip ahead here and just use one of the presets that the tool comes with just to go and pick a bunch of colors. I'm going to pretend that our Van Arsdale colors are like forest colors. We're big into the Shire at Van Arsdale. We love browns and greens. So once we've got all of the colors picked that we want to go and set up, the coolest thing about this tool is you hit the export button and blammo, you get a whole bunch of markup. And this markup is a resource dictionary that you can go and put in your application, and you can be confident in this markup because you got to see what it was like in a live running application even before you put it in. So again, you can do this on specific subtrees of XAML. I'm just going to recolor the entire application here. So I'm going to go right under compact sizing in Van Arsdale sales. I'm going to go and paste all of that markup in. Oh, it'll help if I hit Control. There we go. And there it is. It all comes in. It overrides all the color keys that I need to override to get those specific colors. Just to add a little bit of extra effect, I'm going to go over to our settings page, and I'm just going to dump a bunch of sort of dummy controls in here so that you can see the effect that it has on them. So these controls aren't going to be hooked up to do anything. They're just a bunch of controls. Checkboxes, toggle buttons, radio buttons, and so on and so forth. So as soon as this comes up, you'll be immediately see that it starts to take on the colors that we've set in the tool. I'll walk through into the settings page as well and show you how it's sort of recolored some of those controls. It's loading, and it is up.
Almost.
Now, all right, so as soon as I hover over before I open it up, you can see it's now green. The background here has taken on a new region color that's green. If I go and click this, it's an even darker green because now it's been selected. And if I head into settings, you can see that all of the dummy controls that I put in there have all taken on sort of those green colors. And if I switch over to the dark theme, because you have to think about light and dark when you're doing these things, the dark theme begins to take on the browns. You still get that kind of reveal effect of Fluent and stuff like that. So that's it. I mean, if you guys are building line of business applications now in UWP, load up this tool, pick your colors, export. Done. Go and put it in whatever tree you want. It's just like an extra sort of check mark that you can get that, you know, it's kind of nice. It's the difference between a boring looking tool and one that's got the cool colors. So that's it. That's how it runs.
What was that? Later this year.
Yeah.
Sometime this fall.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a specific time that we've been talking about. Probably, you know, toward the fall, somewhere around there. Yeah.
This will be like a standalone app that you can get from the store.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Okay, great. So we've talked about density and how you can get the new Microsoft standard size, or you can get the opt-in to compact sizing. We've shown that. We've talked about color branding, and now we've got a new tool to, you know, reduce that from hours to minutes. The next topic is data validation UI. So data validation UI, the UI around data validation is just all about helping the user do two things. Understand how to go and input information to, say, a form field in your application. And then when they make mistakes, showing them what those mistakes were and helping them to be able to go and correct those mistakes that they made in the form. Right now in Van Arsdale Sales, there is no data validation UI whatsoever. You could go and put a phone number in the email address field, and the UI won't tell you one way or another whether or not it's happy about that. And the problem with that, of course, is we don't want to get dirty data in our backend, whatever that is. And so we have a set of improvements that are coming to the UI portion of this into XAML form controls, where we're going to be providing some validation UI out of the box, so that for you to be able to go and do the whole validation story end to end, you don't have to deal with creating all that UI yourself if you don't want to. I'm going to show you how to go and do that. Just before I do, here's one of my 2 slides I told you I was going to go and show you. I want to explain data validation just for a minute. This is not a new concept to Windows developers by any means, but I just want to talk through the code that we're about to add in case this is sort of a new topic for you. So when we're talking about data validation, the thing that we're trying to end up with here is something like this, where, you know, we've got like something like a red asterisk to say, hey, this is a required field. The user goes and puts it in, and then if they make a mistake, we go and let them know that they need to go and enter a valid email address, like put in an @ or something. In order to do data validation, though, and to display any errors, we actually have to validate the data, and that's typically done on properties in some class somewhere. It may be in your model, or it may be in your view model, depending on which of those flavors you prefer, because there's lots of opinions on that topic. But regardless of where your properties are, once you've got your data that you want to go and validate, you need to have some actual validation logic in your application. And that validation logic is your own app logic. So you can go and validate the data however you want, and I'm sure many of you do have your own validation logic that you've already written for your backends just to make sure that the data is good. There's also some helpers in system.componentModel and system.componentModel.data annotations namespaces from .NET that you can go and use to help you validate that data, and that's what we're going to use today. So our code will go and mix that in. And specifically, we're going to use the required property attribute and the email address property attribute that's provided by the data annotations namespace. So we're going to go and basically make our email address better in terms of a data validation, and have some actual data validation UI. The new stuff that's coming, the stuff that we've added, is nothing sort of on the left side here. It's the fact that UWP XAML controls now will be able to automatically show validation UI like this out of the box, as long as your data implements iNotify data error info and raises the errors changed event. So if you raise errors changed event from iNotify data error info, our UI will now begin to respond. You can turn it off if you don't want it to respond, but it'll respond by default, and you'll be able to go and get some automatic UI for free. So we'll go to the code, and I'll demonstrate this. The big takeaway just before I do that is that if you are an existing .NET developer and you're familiar, if you've written your data validation code, say, with data annotations, that code will continue to work and you just bring it. And so you'll be able to just keep firing errors, change, and our UI will just begin responding. If you're not, say you're a C++ developer, you don't want to bring in the CLR, and you've got your own validation logic, we're introducing iNotify data error info on the windows.ui.xaml.data namespace, so you can go and get that as well without having to go and use .NET. And also, we have the input validation error class that we're introducing. That's the equivalent of validation results, basically, from data annotation. So let's switch over. I'll code that up now. And to start, what we're going to do is I'm going to do this in the model in this case. I'm going to go over to our customer model. This is the model that Daniel imported earlier. And I'm going to go to our customer class. And the thing that ultimately we have to raise up is errors change from iNotify data error info. So I am going to implement iNotify data error info. And iNotify data error info has 3 important members that need to be added, and I'm just going to go put the implementation in, and oh, that's not what I wanted. That is what I wanted. And I'll walk you through what it dumped in here. So the first thing is we just have a dictionary called errors. This is just going to store all the errors for the customer. So anytime that we run into a validation error, we're just going to go and throw it in there. It's not super interesting. The interesting stuff are the 3 members here. Errors changed is the event that we were talking about, that when you fired this event, our XAML UI controls will now listen to that event, and they'll go and automatically show validation UI in the UI. And when it's fired, it just pulls from the errors property there. Has errors just determines whether or not there are any errors in this class. We won't end up using this today. And get errors is what XAML will use to go and enumerate through the different errors, because there can be more than one error on a specific field. Like an email address could be missing an @ sign, and it could also be too long or something like that. That's implementing iNotify data error info. You can go and implement that on your own validation logic if you want to in your own model or view model. Now that we have it implemented, we need to actually go and validate the data. And I said I was going to use some property attributes to help us here. So I'm going to go up to the email address property, which is right here. And I'm going to go and add a couple property attributes, and the data annotations namespace helps me do this. So let's put them in. This is just going to say our email address property is required, so it can't be empty. And also, it needs to be an email address. And so we'll just validate that to make sure that it's well formed. And just for funsies, I've put in an error message here rather than use the default error message that data annotations validator provides. So now I've put these property attributes on. Let's go and actually put in some validation code that actually uses those attributes to go and validate. And so here it is here. This is just app-side validation code. It does 3 simple steps. The first step is when we're validating something like the email address field, the first step is if there are any previous errors, we're just going to clear them out because we're freshly validating. So we don't want any of that gunk left behind. So we'll go and clear those out. The second thing we're doing, this is kind of like, sort of where a bit of the magic happens, is we're using the validator class from the data annotations namespace, and we're calling try-validate property. Try-validate property is going to basically ingest this property, the email address property. It's going to take the property attributes with it, required and email address, and then it's going to go and figure out if there's any errors. Was the string empty? Was the information properly formed? And if any results come back out of that, if the count is greater than 0, then we are going to go and add those errors to the errors dictionary. And the important part, we're going to raise errors changed. And when errors changed is raised, that's what will signal to the UI that you need to go and show the validation UI. So the only other thing we need to do is actually run this validation logic. And we'll run it every single time the email address property is set. So we already have two-way data binding hooked up through xbind here. So I'm just going to go up to the set I've got like a set helper, basically, pretty common thing.
Windows Template Studio gives you this one.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I'm just going to go in here. Actually, I'll just type it manually. Let's see, we got validate, and we've got field, and let's see, property name, I think is what?
Yes.
Yep, that's it. Perfect. Great. And so every single time that email address is filled in, we are going to validate it. We're going to go and see if any errors happened. If there were, we'll fire errors changed. And then, of course, we'll raise property changed as well, just so that the data binding updates itself. So what we're going to see here is I'm going to enter some bad values into the email address field, and we'll see some of the out-of-box UI show up. But the really interesting thing here that you may not have noticed immediately is that all of this code was written in customer.cs, which is in our data model, which has no UWP dependency whatsoever. So you're going to see these UWP XAML controls listening to code that could have been written ages ago. This is not UWP specific stuff. So if I go in here, I go into the email address field, and I'm just going to type a bad email address. Let's try this, bad email address. And I hit tab. You're going to notice that some UI showed up. This is not especially fluent UI because this is very early pre-release software, so we'll change the visuals. But you can notice that something popped up, a little exclamation point. This was the dude who was on the plane that was helping me debug. He was helping me debug this. And if I hover over this, you can see that a little error message shows up, which is our custom error message that we set in the model. And so this is UWP XAML controls reacting to the errors changed event popping up. And the cool thing is, I'm assuming at least some folks, if not many folks in the room who've done .NET development have written that and used data annotations before. You can bring that code, just hook it up to the controls, and it'll work. So it's kind of cool that way. Now, I'm going to complete this scenario, and there's 3 extra things that I want to show you. First of all, the compact sort of like show the little exclamation mark UI. That's just one of 2 different types of out-of-the-box validation UI that you can go and opt into. So the nice thing about the compact one is if you've got a really big form and you're trying to save space, compact mode will not affect your layout. So we actually shrink down the text box a little bit when we show it. But it doesn't actually affect the layout of any other controls around. And so it's really great for like really dense forms. But there's another mode that you can opt into with a single property that will allow you to go and show those validation errors as text directly underneath the text field here. And sometimes that can be a little bit nicer because then the user doesn't like have to go like over the exclamation point. So I'll show you how to go and do that. We also haven't added a little red asterisk to say that the email address field is required. And so I'll go and add that. That's like really trivial. And then the last thing I'll do is I'm going to put in a custom template for the validation UI that shows up just to show that you don't have to, you're not stuck with the out-of-box UI that we created. You can go and put your own UI in if you want. So I'll go and do that right now. And these will just take a second. Our email address field is in orderpage.xaml. This was the amazing XAML that Daniel typed earlier on, in 30 seconds. And I'm going to go find our email address field. There it is. And so let's get rid of this header here. And I'm going to go and create one that has an asterisk in it. So I'll format this in a second here. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to use one of my favorite hotkeys in Visual Studio, Control-K, Control-F, and that will go and make everything look nice again, because I frequently have to go and do that. So we've now got a new header. It's very simple. We have the email address part of it, and then also this asterisk. It's going to use a new resource, which is another one of those really long named brushes, system control error text foreground brush. And that'll give you a red that actually works pretty well on both the light and the dark theme. So that gets rid of that. The next thing we were going to do is we're going to switch from the compact mode to what's called inline mode, and that's the one that puts the text underneath. To do that, we're going to use a new property that is available called visual kind, and we're going to set that to inline. So that's going to move the UI underneath the box. And the third thing we were going to do here is we're going to create a customization on what that UI looks like. So I'm going to put this in page.resources. And I'm going to put another template in here for it. And the template is right there. So I'm calling this template validation template. I'm going to hook the email address field up to it in just 1 second. Inside it, it has an items control, and the reason it has an items control is because there could be more than one error reported, and so you want to be able to go and show multiple errors if the user's made a number of mistakes. And inside there, we have a template that has a text block. That text block is going to bind to the error message that is being reported back from the model, and it is also going to change the text to blue. I'm going to go courier new. Let's go old school, and I'm going to make it bold. And so the only thing that I need to do is I need to use that template. Let's see, I've lost track of it, so I'll just go and find it this way. There we go. Let's go and tell the email address field to go and use that. I think it's called error template. Yep, got it. And then we're going to go static resource validation template. Perfect. So we've added a red asterisk to the email address field to let the user know that it's required. We have changed the default from compact mode to showing the validation error underneath, and we've customized the validation error. I'll show you what all of that looks like. Perfect. So if I go in here and let's say just don't enter anything at all, I hit tab. I now get inline validation right there. And you don't have to go and write any of that template at all. This would just be red if I didn't write the template. But if you want to go and do styling for your own brand or whatever, then you can go and provide that custom template. I will take questions, but I'll take them at the end. So please remember.
Real quick, the country was underneath. It looks like the blue will break the country down.
Sorry, say that again?
It'll move the UI elements down.
It'll move down. Yeah. So inline mode, that is a good point. Inline mode it will affect your layout, and I mean, it will affect it depending on what you put in there. So by default, it scrunches things like a tiny little bit, maybe a couple pixels per field. Of course, if you put a big elaborate error template in there, or you increase the font size or something, it'll move it more, but it is inline. So it will have an effect. So you get to pick. If you don't want it to affect your layout, use the compact mode, and then you don't have to deal with that issue. So
just think of it as like a new control in your XAML tree.
Exactly. Great. So yeah, we took a look at density, color theming, data validation. I think Daniel's going to come up and he's going to finish our app and show a couple other things.
Great. So thanks a lot, Ryan. We've made a lot of progress in this application. We have the order form mostly complete to the point where I'm at least confident that we won't get horribly corrupted data in our backend because we have some validation. Could you go ahead and switch it back over?
Yeah.
The only thing that we don't have is any way to actually add products to this order form. So our business is not going to be very profitable if we can't sell anything. So let's fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a new view that we're going to talk about after I add a button to navigate to it. So we're going to call it product page. And the one demo that I was really hoping to get up and running today that the code didn't come in quite early enough, like we said, everything is super early, was windowing. So we're actually going to be using a content dialog control just to show what I would want this to look like in the future. But later this fall, you'll have windowing available, and we'll go through exactly what form that's going to take. So before we get into navigating to that page, let's add a button towards the very bottom. That lets me get there. So button, I'll call it product button. I'm going to give it a margin similar to the stack panel beneath it so that it lines up nice to it. I'll give it a top margin so it's not immediately next to it. I'll give it some content to add products, and I will give it a click event handler. And because I'm using a content dialog, the way that I would actually show the content dialog is asynchronously. So I'm going to make my click event handler async, and I'm going to create an instance of that class, product page. One of my other favorite C# features is suggested names equals new product page, and then await product page dot show async. Excellent. So I'm going to open the XAML and start the app. And as this app builds, let me show you what this product page content dialog form takes. So I've got two rows. The layout is effectively two rows. The top row is the majority of the content, and the bottom row is two buttons, submit and cancel. In the top row, I've got side-by-side layout. And I'm not using the split view. I'm effectively doing master detail. But I'm using a stack panel because I don't need the left side to ever change view. I'm using a tree view control that's always going to have a constant width. So I can just use stack panel and have a constant width of that tree view control, rather than using a more advanced control like split view that gives me a whole bunch of additional functionality that I don't need to rely on in this sample. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like. There we go. So I've got my collection, and you can see all of the theming that Ryan already provided with the color demo automatically applies here. It looks really nice. I've got the great borders and the backgrounds that match my forest theme. I can open up my tree view and navigate through all the lamps. And with that compact density, I can fit quite a bit of information, even in this relatively small content dialog control. So, and just scroll through all of them. One of the other new features that we're adding as well is an is-editable property to the existing combo box control. So this is a great example. The way the combo box is populated is a whole bunch of recommended values that are like the most common order quantities. But if I wanted to override that with a number, I can do that. But let's just pick 5, submit. Great, I added products to a form that has no way of displaying that information. So now we got to go ahead and fix that too. One thing I want to call out, so the tree view control actually came out in the April 2018 update of Windows that just released. But I'm actually using the version from the Windows UI library because they're continuing to add functionality. And if I want to be an early adopter, or if I want to test something new that I think is going to be important to my organization, Windows UI library gives me that flexibility. And the specific thing that I'm unable to do in the April 2018 update that I can do here is item source binding. So this tree view control is, what, 5 lines of XAML? Whereas if I were to do it in the April 2018 update to be able to get it to bind the way I wanted it to, I had to retemplate the control, and then it ended up being about 15, 16 lines. So just much cleaner code because I get that additional functionality from an updated control in a NuGet package. The next thing that we're going to do is another brand new control. So far we've done tree view, we've talked about is editable on combo box, and now we're going to talk about data grid, which we recently announced as public in preview. And I'm going to go back, to order page, not product page. Beneath my add products button, but above my cancel order button. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a snippet. And so I'm going to get a bunch of squigglies because I'm missing a resource. But first, I'm going to use my Control KF feature to format the XAML just to make it look prettier. Nice keyboard shortcut. And my other relatively new feature that came to the XAML language service, Control dot for missing namespace prefixes in XAML. So similar to what you have in C#, if you're missing a using statement, now if you are like copying and pasting XAML or from another project, or maybe a coworker's helping you and it's not compiling for some reason, you can try Control dot and pull in that missing namespace. So I will do that, and it's going to add in the Microsoft Community Toolkit. So this is not in WinUI. We're actually shipping the data grid control in the Microsoft Community Toolkit for now for a couple of reasons. One, it's available now as a preview. It's open source. We can iterate more rapidly with the community input. And let me F5 this while I'm talking. And so effectively what we really recognize is to land a productive and powerful enterprise platform, an incredibly rich and powerful data grid control is really essential. And so we want to work with the community and work with our partners to make sure we get this right. Eventually, you'll probably see something come into the platform, but until we feel that it's incredibly powerful and productive, we're shipping it really fast through NuGet. So now I can see I have my data grid control just with 3 columns. So if I look at the code, I can see I'm binding 3 different columns, one with the actual product image so that there's like a little thumbnail of the image. I've got the name, and then I've got the price that's formatted just for the US dollars format. But you can do that however you want with resources. So let's go back in and select a couple pendant lamps. Add 5 of those, submit, I can see them show up. And then maybe some floor lamps, 2 of those, submit, and I can scroll through. And there's a lot more that you can do with the data grid control, but just for sake of time, and there's so much we want to show you, we're keeping it relatively simple. So let's go ahead back to the slides for just a moment. All right, everyone take a big deep breath. We've done a lot. It's been a relatively short session, and we've gone through a lot of material. And I noticed some of you taking pictures of some of the slides you think would be relevant. This slide at the very end of it may be useful to take a picture, so if you want to get your cameras ready. We're just going to recap everything we've done so far. We still have more content to come, but we've gone through a lot fairly quickly, and I want to make sure you can take away all the information that's relevant to you for your organization. So we started our project with Windows Template Studio, arguably the fastest way to get started building productive UWP applications. We continued by adding in our Windows UI library NuGet package to add the menu bar control because it will ship down level. So Windows Template Studio was able to implement that already. Then we went in and included our data model project that was a .NET Standard library that we've used in our existing applications. We added in the UI density resource dictionary from Windows UI library so that I could fit all of those information or all of that information and all of those products on that page and make sure everything in my form fit. We added color theming so that we could infuse our brand into our application in just a couple minutes without wasting a lot of really valuable development time. We added data validation to ensure that the backend data was not corrupted from the client. Then we added a data grid control, which is available now in preview form in the Windows Community Toolkit. And coming up, we're going to talk about windowing, since unfortunately we don't have the demo ready. We're going to talk about distributing your applications, and then we're going to talk about analytics and DevOps for UWP applications. And I'll leave this up for just a few more seconds if you want to take your photos, and then we'll proceed with windowing information. Still slides.
Yeah, that's right.
So there was a big talk about windowing, I think it was earlier today by one of my colleagues, Rob, where he went through the windowing model that's coming to the Universal Windows platform. And if windowing is incredibly important to your organization, I highly encourage you to find that recording and take a look at it. But the approach that we're taking is essentially a three-tiered approach consisting of presenters, environment information, and then more advanced control. And the way you can think of presenters is it's higher level, easier to use APIs that allows you to do things that are expected in Windows 10. So there's going to be a windowing model that will be familiar to users of Windows 10 applications, which could be like picture-in-picture. It could be maximizing, minimizing, more simple windowing functionality such as that. And these APIs should be fairly easy to use because what you can do with them isn't quite as powerful, but still quite a bit of power over what you can do today. And those will be coming soon. The next thing is to make sure that our platform is scalable for the future, we're going to be providing you with the environment information of your application. And because this could really vary, think of like a desktop with 4 monitors and a head-mounted display connected to it. So you've got your Oculus or your HTC Vive head-mounted display or one of your Windows VR headsets, and you want to build a multi-window application that can go between monitors as well as your head-mounted display, and then you can lift the visor and take a look at the monitors. Environment information will give that to you. Finally, positioners. This is really where that advanced control comes in. You'll be able to essentially identify any windowing region in your application and in the environment that your application is running. So if you have 4 or 5, who knows how many monitors, we've seen some really incredible configurations, you'll be able to identify all of those regions and actually just treat it like a coordinate system. So you can resize your windows however you want. You can put them on any region you want. You can really do anything you want with them. The other thing that's coming that I think is going to make more advanced windowing easier for many users is a single-threaded model for UI windows. And just take a simple scenario. You have 2 windows, the one we actually just did right now. Let's say we are binding the order page window to a collection that we're adding to, and then the data grid is also bound to that same collection. If I'm trying to access that collection information from both windows and they were on separate threads, it gets a lot more challenging because I have to make sure that every time one of them is updating, it's notifying the other UI thread to update. Otherwise, I get into a crash, and it's a lot harder to do. By having everything UI related on the single thread for simple scenarios, that problem goes away. I can have multiple windows. They're operating on the same thread. When one collection updates on one window, the other one updates automatically on the other window, and there's no problems. So the Van Arsdale inventory app that we showed you at the beginning does do some more advanced windowing modeling, but it's all multi-threaded, so it's more complicated code that we just don't really have the time for this session to go into. So I'm really excited for this specific feature. It's going to be awesome. And this is on top of the multi-threaded scenarios. So you'll still have that flexibility if you want to really optimize your application to take advantage of all the CPU available to you to essentially spin up multiple threads for each window and do different operations. That's still available. This is just an addition to that. So later this year, we're actually going to begin our journey on this more mature windowing platform for UWP, and we're going to continue investing in it for the foreseeable future. We recognize this is Windows, and having multiple windows in your application is what makes Windows the Windows platform. So we're really excited to bring this to you soon and work with you on your feedback to make sure that this is the best windowing platform for Windows development. All right. So, oops, sorry. If you want to take a picture, I'll leave it up for just a second as we switch over to talk about distribution so we can go back to Visual Studio.
Yep.
So we built our application. We've got most of the functionality in. I could go in and do data validation on the rest of my fields, but we're going to skip ahead and just talk about distribution. And so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to pretend that I'm one of the users of the application. So I'm going to go uninstall it first. I don't want the application from my development bits. This isn't an actual package. This is F5'd from Visual Studio. And the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the output that we're going to generate in just a moment from Visual Studio, but I'm going to start installing V1 of the app. So before the session began, I created a package in Visual Studio using what's a checkbox that enables the app installer technology. And this produces several things. It produces your normal package, your MSIX package behind the scenes, an index.html page that you can host anywhere in your organization that essentially just gives you a get the app link as well as additional links if someone needs the certificate. But if you're using an enterprise managed certificate, users of your application can simply click get the app, launch the app installer, select install, and that's it. So we've recognized that distribution has been not quite up to par for Windows 10 distribution. It's been heavily reliant on the store or the store for business, but we know many enterprises don't distribute applications like that, and we wanted to provide you with the flexibility to distribute the apps however you want. So just like that, I'm installing V1 on my app. I'm going to return to Visual Studio and get the next version of my package started because I want to show you one of my favorite features of the app installer. So I'll select Create App Packages. The default selection in Visual Studio, beginning with version 15.7 that was released at the beginning of this week, is I want to create packages for sideloading. And so long as you're targeting a more recent version of Windows, I believe it is the Fall Creators Update, you can enable automatic updates for your package. So what I'll do is I'll select Next. I'm going to do a major version increase because I'll show you version 1 in just a moment. This is definitely a major version increase. And where I'm deploying this is actually that network share. So the share I just accessed to install my application is an Azure hosted network share that's just a shortcut on my desktop. So this is a network share I could share with anyone. It just happens to be on my desktop for now. And then the installation URL is exactly where I'm placing the output. So when I build it, it's going to publish that package to that share, and then that's also where I'm installing it from. And so that's where it's going to look for those automatic updates every time the application runs. So I'll select Create, and this should have finished. So I can launch my application. So this is the app that I just downloaded and installed. It's an early version of our app. There's no validation. There's no add products button. There's no theming, none of that. This is from before the session. And so now, as the package creates, we'll go back to the slides just to talk about some of the things that are going on. And we'll show you this live demo in just a moment. So the app installer technology gives you differential updates behind the scenes. So the update will literally take 2 to 3 seconds. It's really incredible. And it'll do it behind the scenes. So this application, let's take it as an example. Some of our traveling sales representatives are meeting with a customer. They launched the Van Arsdale sales application, and they're using Quick Once technology. They get a notification to update their application, and the customer's like, why aren't you prepared for this meeting? Like, why didn't you get this update? And they didn't know that. The update was published 10 minutes ago, so how are they supposed to really prepare for that? Well, with background updates for non-essential updates, you can effectively only update it behind the scenes. So they can still launch and run the application. Then the next time they close it, it'll update automatically. You can also schedule it for an update every hour, so it can check every hour, every 2 hours, however you want it to do. So it'll just go behind the scenes, so it never interrupts the use of that application. In addition, we will have support for user-prompted updates. If there's some security vulnerability or a change in your data model that will essentially break the app because you're communicating with a database that doesn't support the data model in the client, you can force an update using user-prompted updates coming later this fall. Behind the scenes is the MSIX package technology, which I'm sure you've heard quite a bit about at this conference. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but there's a lot of sessions on MSIX and why it's really going to streamline your application deployment. Now, if we go back to Visual Studio, my package creation was successful. So I'm going to go back to that share just to take a look. And I can see I now have version 2 of this package. The index.html page was updated, as well as the app installer file. But I'm not going to go to the index.html page anymore. That's first-time acquisition of this application. And that's something you could host on your own network shares to make it really easy to share your apps. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the app that I've already installed one more time. And then I'm going to close it and wait a few seconds. If any of you wants to time me, feel free. So here I have the app. Close it. Let's wait 5 seconds or so. And let's run it again. Just like that, you already see the new theme. You see the compact resourcing. I can make this bigger and start creating my order. Everything is there. My data grid, everything we've done in this session is now there just because I created a package and deployed it to the same location. Just like that. So we're really excited to bring this to you. And this is also available today. So with the April 2018 update and Visual Studio version 2017 version 15.7, you can do all this right now. So not only that, but if you're using the Windows Application Packaging Project to package your existing Win32.NET desktop applications, you can use this for that as well. It's really powerful. So now we're going to go back to the slides for another second. So we've talked about distributing your application for end users of your application. What about pre-release beta testers, developers, and your DevOps flow? Well, what I want to show you is how easy it is to get set up with DevOps with the Visual Studio App Center, and also get telemetry and insights integrated into your modern application, just to learn how your application is being used, track custom events, and more. So let's go back to Visual Studio. The first thing I'm going to do is uninstall the application. If you try to F5 an application that is already installed on the machine, you'll get a prompt to uninstall it. But this build of Windows was having an issue with that, so I'm going to uninstall it manually. Gotta love pre-release software. It's awesome. No, it's been really, really fun. So far, this has been going really well.
Actually, we've really made it pretty far.
Yes. The fact that everything has worked as expected is like awesome. So I want to
editable combo box, I think, was like the highest risk of loss, and we made it
yes.
through that.
So what I'm going to do is navigate to my appcenter.ms page. This is essentially the hub for App Center. You can create multiple applications, but I've already got one created. So this experience is really fast. You just select UWP. I've already got my Builds 2018 app. And this gives you all the steps you need to integrate App Center into your application. But the good news is App Center did almost all of this for me. Or sorry, Windows Template Studio did almost all of this for me. But I forget where they put that code in my project. So another thing that I really love about Windows Template Studio is that when they don't completely do something for you, because they can't, they need more information, like a secret from App Center, they give you a to-do in your application so you can see it in the task list. So I can double click and see, oh, here's my appcenter.start. And all I need to do is add my app secret code. The other thing that's really easy to do with App Center is custom events. So I want to navigate right here just to prove that everything is real and navigate to events. I'm going to add a brand new event name called Build 2018, and we're going to run the app. I'll refresh it, and you'll see that for really incredibly fast insights. So appcenter.track event. Whoops. Am I missing a using statement? I may have lost IntelliSense, but I think this is the right code. Like I said, it's amazing we haven't had any other issues.
You spoke too early.
I think we jinxed it, folks. But we'll see if this compiles and runs.
We'll see.
And so, oh, whoops, analytics.track event, my bad. It's using the wrong namespace. There we go. So I'm using the analytics namespace, which comes from one of the NuGet packages that Windows Template Studio installed for me when I selected that App Center feature in project creation. And so now I'll build this, it'll run, and as soon as it runs, and that single line of code gives you a lot of information. So if you're not using custom events, that one line of code gives you everything you see in this dashboard. So you get daily active users, weekly active users, monthly active users, how many daily sessions each of your users are doing, session duration. But I think what's really important for enterprises is active users per version. So essentially, you can see how that migration path is working. So if there's a fix that's really important for your users, or if there's some security vulnerability or a data model change, you can essentially figure out who those users are that are on those older versions and send notifications to them saying, like, hey, please update, like this is bad. Or you can also use the app installer forced updates. So really just gives you that insights to know, hey, there's people still on this vulnerable version of my application. That's not good. We need to figure out what's going on. So my application's running. The app constructor has launched. So if I go back into custom events, I should see Builds 2018, just like that. So literally just a few seconds later, I've got that custom event. I am the only user of that event because I just wrote it. It happened just now. But you can also track custom events as you build your application to know exactly how your users are using the app. Just taking time. Cool. The last thing you can do with App Center that's incredibly easy, especially if you're using GitHub to host your code or VSTS, is set up automated builds, as well as distributing to collaborators on that application. So whether these are your beta testers or the developers in your organization to dog food the latest versions of the app. It's as simple as we've got an alternate branch going, but I'll set up my master branch, which is what we've been working out of to configure the build. And this is really just like a streamlined UI for client applications. So think of all the power of VSTS simplified for client application development. So I'll build it in release. You can upload a custom enterprise certificate for signing the builds, so you don't have to worry about cert management, but we don't have that right now. Distribute your builds with collaborators and save and build, just like that. So what that does is it uses Azure-hosted build agents with all of the Visual Studio tools installed to go and build your application. And then when the build completes, it'll essentially upload those artifacts for all of the collaborators to go and download as they need to sideload or install however they see fit. That'll take a while, though, because release for all three architectures with .NET Native takes a bit. So we're going to go back to the slides for a moment. And I'm going to pass it back to Ryan to finish things off.
Awesome. So yeah, we're pretty much toward the end. I just got a couple more slides. The first one I'll show you here is just a sort of a basic roadmap to give you guys an idea of sort of what we've looked at today. This isn't necessarily a complete roadmap. It's like everything I could fit reasonably with like that font size. But you know, the big takeaway here, I guess, or maybe I'll just point out a few specific ones. You know, the Van Arsdale inventory application that we started things off with, you can go and download that. There's a link in here. You'll be able to go and get these slides, by the way, afterward. You can go and download all these slides. So just giving you guys a heads up, we're going to post them. We've got a data grid that's out, which is really exciting. It's in pre-release right now. You guys can go and make use of that. Windows Template Studio, obviously, is an awesome way to go and get your application started. But there's all kinds of stuff that's available now. A lot of things that we showed that are coming in 2018. I did very careful calculations and determined that 6 exclamation marks was how many exclamation marks we needed on Windows UI library. It's an extremely exciting thing, even for us, to be able to go and deliver platform features and controls to in-market versions of Windows 10. This is a big deal for us, and we're really thrilled to be able to go and say that. You guys can go and make use of these now without having to be on the blistering edge, which can be just really, really hard for enterprise and line of business, and we understand that. And the last thing I'll say is, on the investigating sort of box, that really means investigating. It doesn't mean I'm promising all of these features, but we are looking at stuff. We'd like to take a look at building a real form control, a tabs control. The ribbon is a big topic for us that we want to go and talk about. This is where you guys can provide feedback. You know, you can help engage with us. You can talk to us after the talk, because we want to make sure that we're building the features that are really useful and will be used for line of business type applications. So the other thing I'll do is I'll point to a bunch of related sessions, all of which have happened. But you can, all these sessions are recorded. And I'm going to point out 2 specific ones that might be interesting if you didn't already catch them. Yesterday, Mike Harsh had a talk in the morning just after the keynote on modernizing desktop apps on Windows 10. It was very well attended, but if you didn't get to that one, you should definitely go and check out the video. He covers a bunch of stuff, including the UWP XAML Islands technology for bringing all the great features that you saw today into a Win32 application. So go check that one out. And then Robert Carmen had the talk on windowing earlier on this morning, and we wanted to show a lot of the windowing demo stuff, but you can go and see even more information on that from him. So the last really thing that I want to say here is if there's one takeaway that I hope you guys got from this, is that we're really investing to try and make UWP great for enterprise, line of business, productivity type applications. We're bringing a lot of new features. We're trying to get them out as quick as we can because we know you guys really want to go and use them. And this is a big focus area for us, and we're really excited to be doing it. So we're really thrilled on that. So
cool. Thank you so much. We'll stick around for some questions. And also, don't forget session evaluations. I always read every single comment, so please tell us how we can do better.
Where is it? Here it is, yeah. Yeah, we really do use the session evaluations, and we really appreciate the feedback, so please go and fill them out.
So we've got a question.
Do you have any controls or plans to do anything with obfuscation?
In what aspect?
Well, like you had just put your GUID in for the analytics. Somebody could actually open that up and steal your GUID. And
I don't think so, but that's good. We have like a password box control that exists, but I think that's the closest thing that we would have for that, so you could use that. But in terms of like generic obfuscation of UI, I don't think so. So
yeah.
It's good feedback though. It's something we'll
for text-based stuff. Password box is good for taking in stuff like that, and we do a lot of protections even under the scenes in password box to make sure that we protect that information.
And this is great. We've been waiting for this for a long time. So
great.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Other questions? Oh, God, you're talking about the card thing? Yeah, so Kyle Anderson back there. Hey, Kyle. He's got some cards that are like, there's sort of like a little Fluent ticket / cards. If you go and pick one of those up, then head over to the, what's the name of the booth called? Fluent? It's like the Fluent user. It's right next to the XAML UI booth. You can go and pick up one of these guys and a swag bag that it's got some other stuff too.
Yes. The question is there a default validation for phone numbers, especially regarding to like different countries and things like that? I think so.
I know that so with the, sorry.
You could do a custom validator. Sorry? Yeah, you can do custom rejects. You can do custom validation logic. Like you can do any sort of C# coding to validate any of the data going into that field.
So specifically, those property attributes like required and email address that I put on, those are some that come out of the box. There's a phone number one as well that I just didn't show today. If you want to do something more sophisticated than just what that provides, like region-specific type of stuff, that I'm not sure, I don't know if data annotations handles the region specific, but you can write your own custom property attributes and go and do that as well. So, you know, if the helpers don't work for you, custom validation is completely fine. Yeah.
Cool. Question back there.
Having a problem coming out. Okay, so is there going to be any method to actually maybe I missed something from the validate function, but is there any way to actually clarify, like, this is only invalid, or it's a field that only is required if this checkbox is checked?
So the question was, is there advanced functionality with validation to essentially have conditional validation logic? So if a checkbox is checked or not, this field is required, but only based off of the condition of this checkbox. I think you would have to use custom validation logic for that, but you could do that. You could essentially have like a required if checkbox is checked, then in the code behind or in your view model or something, check to see the state of that checkbox, and then just apply the required property attribute or something like that.
Yeah, Daniel's got it right. So you can still use the property annotations to go and do like the basic data validation, and then you just make it conditional in your validate function.
So basically handle the required myself and handle the required feature myself in the validate function.
Yeah.
But I do everything else in the annotation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I saw a question over here. Yes.
Perhaps customers who are still in Windows 7 and have no chance of there will be backporting.
So the question is, will there be any backporting from Windows 10 to Windows 7? All of this stuff will be Windows 10 only. However, we've heard this feedback loud and clear, and that's where a lot of the .NET Core 3 desktop tooling stuff is coming in. So a lot of that may be Windows 10 only as well, but it gives you a path to manage your existing Windows 7 assets and essentially work for Windows 10 only stuff while still providing a Windows 7 solution.
The other question would be, I can think about the sales force, and let's say one of my guys wants to go different from somebody else.
Sure.
They all want to customize.
Yeah.
Is it backup? So is it possible to, like, in runtime, have them rearrange drag things around so that then they can save their templates the next time they bring it up and display for them?
You could do that, yes. I actually I think the Van Arsdale inventory application kind of does a little bit of this. It's not like rearranging UI per se, but it's like popping windows out and changing things in code behind. So it should give you like a high level overview of how you would manage XAML positioning and styling in code behind. So yes, possible. Definitely.
And I mean, there is a lot of code, like on Stack Overflow, if you search for how to work with XAML classes and XAML objects and code behind. So there's like, it's not hard to go and find that stuff too. So the good news is, if you do want to go and do like a bunch of runtime, even like tree operations to remove controls from the tree and put them in other spots and stuff, there's lots of examples for you to be able to go and do that, which is great. Mm-hmm.
So the question was, what's the story for UWP to manage user preferences and application settings and things like that? Yeah, so there's one or two APIs that are essentially like app data. Is one way to do it, so it's persisted in like the app folder. If you wanted to do things beyond that, like with the desktop bridge technology, there's actually like what's called the virtual registry. So you could write to the registry, but it's actually managed and read-write only from that application. So that's another way you could do it. And it depends on how you have your app. Like if you're starting from scratch, probably use app data and the app data APIs because it's more streamlined. If you're bringing existing assets forward that depend on the registry, then you could write to this virtual registry to just make it so you don't have to rewrite all your code. Yes? what kind of scenario? I mean, like, that's always the question, right? Something internal. What does it need to accomplish?
So this would be a UI that the tester would be using to interact with it.
Sure. So you could build a UI layer with UWP with probably like some background service. There's an article online that's essentially like integrating some existing Win32 services for integrating with those DLLs. You might be a little more restricted in what you could do accessing those DLLs in UWP only, but there's ways you can merge Win32 technology with UWP. And UWP is probably the easiest and best way to get the UI looking really nice for those testers. So I would definitely encourage you to check that out. One other point of mention is that we're investigating more flexibility in the capabilities of a UWP app. So essentially, there will be more knobs and dials in the capabilities for you to do things such as this in only UWP. You'll probably hear a lot more about that later this year, but that's a little further out. But all of those are achievable with using desktop bridge technology.
Is that a scenario where islands might come in?
That's also a possibility, yeah. So like if you want to, that's further out. So it's achievable today with the desktop bridge technology. It'll probably be a little easier with .NET Core 3 desktop and using XAML Islands. But effectively, like investing in UWP assets is certainly not a waste because everything that we're moving towards with .NET Core 3, with UWP native, is essentially starting to converge to like the best of all worlds almost, if that's a fair thing to say. So, any other questions?
We're getting lots of signals. We're way over.
No more questions. Get out of here.
Okay, we'll stop.
Thanks, everyone. We'll stick around over here after we clean up our laptops for a second.
Yeah.